Okay, so thanks for everyone for staying to the last presentation. Thank you for the organizers for inviting me. So let me go back to the start here. So briefly, I've been in Turkey for about 15 years. On a daily basis, I'm functional in Turkish. I'm not fluent. And so I'm not involved in international, like the national energy policy. I would not consider myself an insider on this. And so this presentation represents my view. I work at the METU Center for Solar Energy Research and Applications, specifically in the solar thermal area, concentrated solar thermal. So this does have my specific view perspective on this. And so here you have, I highlighted the countries in the Eastern Mediterranean and Middle East regions, and I blocked out Turkey, which is the 19th largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world, and Cyprus. And then the last column is the greenhouse gas emissions normalized to Cyprus. And so Turkey is about 60 times that of Cyprus. So obviously, any regional solution, Turkey has to be a big player in terms of market uptake, along with obviously Saudi Arabia and also Iran. I also have Germany. I'll talk more about Germany on the next slide. So I always think about Turkey as being almost as big as Germany population-wise. And so I went to the data, and I was surprised because it came up that this is a couple days ago, Turkey had 14 more people, or 14,000 more people than Germany, and so it seems like we've crossed that threshold. And so I think the world rank is maybe from a year or two ago, so we're about 18th or so in the world. And so this is where, obviously, we're almost identical population-wise. We have a lot of differences. One of the big differences, as expected, would be the per capita GDP, where Turkey is about 1/5 that of Germany. Greenhouse gas emissions. On a per capita basis, we're about half of Germany. Other big things, annual growth rates and population. We're growing about 1.5% versus 0.2% for Germany. And over the past, about 27 years, our greenhouse gas emissions have grown by 135%, and Germany has gone down by about 27%. So visually, we can look at this, and I pulled these two graphs together, and I scaled these, this is 500 megatons, and so you can look at the trends, and to simplify this is what we see, Turkey on the left and Germany on the right. So in terms of magnitude, Turkey looks pretty good. In terms of trends, Turkey does not look so good. And so this is, I think, one of the key ideas from this presentation. So we can look at kind of what's driving this increase in greenhouse gas emissions from Turkey. And this is the total primary energy supply. So you have oil, coal, natural gas, and the hydro and biofuels. And then at the bottom, you have geothermal at 3.7%, solar at 0.7%, and wind at 0.8%. And so fossil fuels are 87.5% or so of our total primary energy, and 74% of this is imported. And so we have large concerns about energy security within Turkey. And Turkey is trying to develop nuclear power. And so we have a 4.8 gigawatt power plant under construction. It was supposed to be completed, I think, maybe next year. They pushed it back, I think, to 2023. And so there's another one that's, I guess, maybe like the feasibility study, 4.5 gigawatts. This is on the Black Sea. And another 4 gigawatts are being under negotiations in the European side and the Northwest. And so I specifically want to focus on this renewable energy part, which is obviously a very small part down here, because this is where my perspective comes from. And so if we look at this on a different plot, this yellow part here is the solar, geothermal, and biomass. You see this expanding out here. And this years of about, so the 2009 energy strategy document said 30% renewable energy generation from renewables by 2023. So 2023 is important for Turkey because this is Turkey's centennial. So we have lots of different goals for 2023. And so, so as I said yesterday, we have these goals, and a lot of times you don't meet the goals. And so this period of about 2009 to 2011 is where I was in Turkey at the time, is where you start to see this growth start and renewable energy. I'll come back and I'll talk about these numbers, but these are projections from 2014, and so I specifically am going to come back and talk about how we're doing relative to 2019 projections as we move through this presentation. So Turkey does have a lot of geothermal resources. Turkey ranks 7th globally in geothermal resources, and right now Turkey is 4th globally in terms of the installed capacity. And so this is kind of hard to see, but this is the increase in installed capacity in Turkey. This is the power output. This is the year, and so we can simplify this. I thought. There we go. Okay. So we can simplify this. And so once again, you see there was a power plant installed, I think in the 80s maybe, but it was very small. So starting in 2009, you start to see this rapid increase in geothermal capacity. And so right now we're at 1.35 gigawatts. And recall, you may not recall, but the goal for next year was 700. So we've almost doubled the capacity goal for geothermal. Wind energy. And so this is Turkey down here. It's about 7 gigawatts of installed and about 0.8 under new capacity added in 2017. So you can compare this to different European countries. And so relative to a lot of European countries, Turkey has a relatively small penetration of wind energy. This is the share of wind power in the electricity generation in Turkey for January through June of this year. And so you can see that we're right around 5 to 6%, maybe 7% or so of electricity comes from wind right now. So the goal for wind capacity, that was the goal from 2014 for 2019, was 10 gigawatts. And we can look at what's happening. This is 7 gigawatts right here for 2018. And so we're still about 3 gigawatts away from this goal. And if you look at the trend in terms of annual installed capacity, we reached this peak in 2016, and now it's coming down. And I honestly don't know what's causing this to come back down. This is just a fact that I'm going to report to you. So as I said, 2009 to 2011, to me, I started to see a lot of things happening in Turkey. One of them was the establishment of Turkey's first wind energy research institute, 2011, METU Wind. This is located on the METU campus. And so it's grown a lot. It's been really fascinating for me to watch the growth of this for the past 7 or 8 years. And most significantly, they are installing a new very large wind tunnel facility. And so this is a person right here, so you get a size, a kind of a sense for the scale of this. And they're actually constructing a brand new building to house this wind tunnel. And so this wind tunnel facility will be a unique research infrastructure at the European level. And to me, it reflects, once again, in about 2009 to 2011, you started to see this growth in renewable energy in Turkey. And you start to see Turkey investing in research capacities and innovation capacities. So they established the METU Wind or Ruzgem Research Center to support domestic development of the wind industry and also the wind markets. Obviously, Turkey has large solar resources, both in terms of just the quality of the resources, also because Turkey is a very large country. And so it's not as good as the northern African regions, but relative to a lot of Europe, we do have very good resources. Like Cyprus, we have a very large uptake of solar hot water systems. And so we talked about, I think the population for Turkey is maybe 80, 90 times larger than Cyprus. And so I think the penetration rate percentage-wise is much, much lower than Cyprus, but because of the large population, Turkey actually has the second largest solar hot water market in the world. And a lot of this is like the gray economy. This market exists without any government incentives or subsidies. And so there are a lot of small manufacturers who sell this under in the black market to avoid the value added tax. And so we don't have a really good number, I think, on the actual installed capacity, but it does indicate that this is market competitive. People are doing this outside the government intervention, which speaks to the quality of the overall solar resources in Turkey. So the PV has just really taken off in the past 3 or 4 years. And so I think 5 years ago it was almost non-existent. It's non-existent, I think, to a large extent because of government policies and problems with trying to integrate this into the market or into the grid. So the yellow is from 2016, and this blue is 2017. And so you see in 2017 in Europe, Turkey had the largest PV market. And I think 4 or 5 years ago, it was almost non-existent. And so this was a growth of 213% over 1 year. So you see this massive growth in PV. And we have about 4.6 gigawatts of PV installed right now. And so this is the main largest countries in terms of PV installation. This is Spain at 5.6. So we're somewhere down here, not the top 10, but we're getting close to being top 10 in terms of installed capacity. The goal for 2019 from 2014 was 3 gigawatts. And so we've already about 50% above this goal for 2019. There are what's called the Karapinar Tender project is being under development. This will be a 1 gigawatt PV power plant in Konya. So Konya is in central Turkey. And so this is a list from June 2017 of the largest PV power plants in the world. And so the largest one is in India at 1 gigawatts. And so we're talking about having one of the largest PV power plants in the world installed in Turkey. And so 2009 saw the establishment of the Center for Solar Energy Research and Applications, also at METU. And this has been a big catalyst for the growth of solar industry and solar markets and solar markets and industry within Turkey. And so to support domestic production, and so obviously one of the goals for this PV is to grow industrial capacities. GÜNAM just opened up a new pilot PV line to support PV production. And so this is a view of this. The people who won the tender for the Karapinar project, they're going to be establishing a manufacturing line about 40 kilometers from METU and GÜNAM in Ankara, capacity of 0.5 gigawatt per year. And so this comes from a GÜNAM presentation that was given to me, and this will be the largest PV production facility in the region. And so based on this presentation, there was a larger one, Solar World, but it seemed that it's closed. And so I was told this will be the largest one, both in the region and also at the European level. And then also 2 other solar manufacturing lines are being established with 120 megawatt per year production under construction. So Turkey has been moving very aggressively into developing this. Moving into my area, I've been working on establishing this concentrated solar thermal research laboratory, ODAK, and so we have funding from the Ministry of Development. And so I'm hoping I see parallels between the wind and the establishment of the Wind Research Center back in 2011. The PV group at GÜNAM is really, really strong. And so GÜNAM was established in 2009 primarily for PV. And so I'm hoping that we can replicate the successes in wind and in PV in the area of CST. So Turkey does have this 5 megawatt thermal DSG central receiver power plant that was built using, I think it's about 80% Turkish technology. And so we've demonstrated the ability to do this. This is a small pilot hybridization power plant. We hybridized parabolic trough, the geothermal power plant in Aydın. And so we're active in EU Solaris. We're on track to join this. Horizon STE recently accepted joint action, NSHIP, Sphere 3, and also ERA JP CSP. So in conclusion, main ideas, greenhouse gas emissions. So in terms of magnitudes, we look pretty good. Once again, Turkey and Germany have about the same population. In terms of trends, not so good. We are third in the Eastern Mediterranean and Middle East regions in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, and about 19th ranked globally, or about 1% globally of all greenhouse gas emissions. Generation mix. So once again, this is hard to see, but this yellow part down here, this wedge that's been growing since about 2009 to 2011, is the solar, wind, and geothermal. And so this is on a percent basis. I see the percent in my office. I think, wow, it's growing fast. We put this into a larger context in terms of magnitudes. It's still a very small part. So this light gray is the gas and the dark black is the coal. And then you have the hydro down here. And so professionally, my goal then is to try to grow this yellow part. I think that's where I'm going to have some impact. Nuclear, 0 gigawatts installed, but there's between, I'm going to say 5 and 13 gigawatts planned. And so I think like a lot of nuclear power plants, there's always delays and things like this happening. And so I'll just say this is what's trying to be developed. For geothermal, 1.35 gigawatts. And so most of this has been installed in the past 5 years, just the 4th globally. The 7 gigawatts of wind, the market appears to be slowing. Once again, I don't know why. I can just say this is from the graph. For the PV, we have 4.6 gigawatts installed. It's the largest market right now in Europe, grew by 213% in 2017, and we're just beginning domestic production. We don't have any solar thermal electricity or concentrated solar thermal installed. We do have this new lab, and the government is saying they will invest for us to join EU Solaris, and they've been active in a lot of co-fund activities. And so I think that Turkey is looking to develop our research and innovation capacities within CST. So METU, we have the largest and leading solar research and wind research centers in Turkey. And the solar is GÜNAM, the wind is Rüzgim. And Turkey is active in a lot of bilateral, multilateral funding, renewable energy actions. And so from my perspective, I think in many cases it's easier to go to multilateral, it's easier to get funding for us for multi and bilateral actions than just for domestic actions. And this is my contact information. I also put contact information for people from PV and GÜNAM, wind and Rüzgim, policy and technology, geothermal, and also down here at the bottom is desalination. I think we have a lot of potentials for desalination that have not been exploited. So this is one of my goals, is to try to bring some people in with background in desalination into CST. So thank you very much for your time.
There any questions?
Is there any chance to stop the construction of the nuclear power plants in Mersin?
So this is a great question. The question is there any chance to stop the construction of the nuclear power plants? And so I think a lot of nuclear power plants, they get started and they're not completed for various reasons. So I don't have a lot of background knowledge about this. I just saw in the paper, when I was doing a search for this presentation, I saw like a headline, delays in the construction of the power plant, and they're having problems finding local partners. Now, I don't know kind of what the veracity of this news article was. I don't know what their perspective was. Just that one news article says they're having problems finding local partners and having problems in moving forward, and that maybe the start date has been pushed back to delays. And so I don't know. So I think this is, obviously Turkey wants to do this because it's doing this, but wanting to do this and actually doing it seem to be two different things in the nuclear power industry. So the question is about storage, and so to my knowledge, there is no pumped or any type of large-scale storage in Turkey. There is a lot of natural gas storage that they think they take natural gas from other countries and store it, but not for electricity or thermal.